is a city of two realities. One is the former city, governed by KCCA and its policies. The other is the actual city, vibrant and massive with the informal economy, yet a lifeline of millions of people. Now, this report captures how government's failure to formulate a policy that integrates the two has left the city's most vulnerable exposed to extortion by those who hold the power.
During 2 weeks spent living and filming among street vendors, we discovered a pattern. The Capital City Authority enforcement officers, who are supposed to remove street vendors from the streets, were instead extorting money from them as a quid pro quo for allowing them sell on the streets. To understand how these officers operate, I decided to start a small vending business myself.
Visited this place to understand what the daily life of a street vendor looks like. Now, this is a parking lot, but it also acts as a store for the different street vendors that are here. It's where they keep their goods, and early morning they set off to the streets.
I sold mangoes on the streets. Each morning, I would wake up early, buy mangoes from Nakasero Market, and find a spot to sell. It did not take long to learn how things really worked. Money was collected from the vendors 2 or even 3 times a day, depending on the moods of the enforcement officers. The first round came around 10 a.m., another at 1 p.m., and a different team sometimes appeared again at 4 p.m. Payments depended on what you sold, your age, and your location. Young, energetic vendors were charged about 10,000 shillings or even more, while elderly ones paid around 5,000 shillings, though sometimes you could get away with 2,000 if you were lucky. Those selling clothes paid even more. Weekends are worst. The enforcement officers become money hungry. Few arrests were made unless someone refused to pay. Some officers had people who collected the bribes for them, while others boldly took the money themselves, even while wearing their uniforms. Filming this was risky. William, my camera person, sat inside a nearby restaurant while I stayed with the vendors, dressed just like them. Well, I could not go on the streets looking like a Disney princess. When the enforcement team appeared, vendors quickly folded their goods. Some ran, others paid, and a few lost their items. Let's follow this guy closely. I mean this one officer wearing a blue shirt. He grabs about 3 shirts from vendors who tried to flee. Now, to get it back, the vendor has to follow him, hand him some cash, and within seconds, the officer smoothly slips the money into his pocket before walking off. The vendor is then free to return to business until the next collection time. For some vendors, survival depends on building small friendships with the enforcement officers. That way, they can pay less or be allowed to pay later when sales are bad. This other guy is wearing a t-shirt, still with a KCCA logo. He gives out change before he takes cash from the vendors. At one point, my cameraman, William, tried to move closer for a better shot. Unfortunately, he was caught. The officers harassed him, took photos of his national ID, and he lost it in the mix. They deleted our footage, but luckily we managed to recover some of it later. In July this year, President Museveni announced a 300 million cash boost to street vendors in Kampala City. Each vendor received 100,000 shillings, implying that approximately 3,000 vendors were beneficiaries of the scheme. If enforcement teams collected 10,000 shillings from each of these 3,000 vendors in a single round, that would amount to 30 million shillings in one sweep. If such collections occurred twice a day, the total would reach 60 million shillings. A third round would bring it to 90 million per day. If instead the enforcement team took only 5,000 shillings from each of the 3,000 vendors, one round would total 15 million shillings, 2 rounds would reach 30 million shillings, and 3 rounds would hit 45 million shillings in a single day. To place this in context with the parish development model, under current policy, each parish is allocated about 100 million shillings annually. A total of 900 million shillings would therefore correspond to the allocation of about 9 parishes. This is what life looks like for street vendors in Kampala, a daily fight to survive under rain, cold, hunger, and endless extortion. Their faith is strong, but the city is unkind.